Hello and welcome to the Journal d'Endurance podcast. This episode is the English version of a conversation that was originally recorded in French. I would like to thank Allan Léon for kindly agreeing to re-record this episode in English. Please excuse me for my English, I am still learning, but I hope you will enjoy this interview. You guessed it, today's guest is Allan Léon, who has combined his two passions, running and horses, to build a remarkable career in endurance. Today, he is a rider, trainer, breeder, selector and educator involved at every level of the sport. In this episode, we talked about the early stages of his journey, his partnership with Spirit de Crouz, a story marked by many great moments, including the 2018 FEI World Equestrian Games in Tryon. Allan also shares his experience as an international educator, particularly through the FEI Solidarity program, which has recently taken him to Southern Africa and the United Arab Emirates. We wrap up the episode by discussing his current role as team selector for the Swiss national team. It's a rich conversation that touches on every aspect of his professional journey, from top-level sport to the passing on of knowledge. Have a good listening. Hello, Allan. Thanks for being with us today. To start, could you introduce yourself and tell us how you became a professional in endurance?
Well, hi everyone. I would just start to apologize for my level in English because it's probably not perfect, but I will try to do my best. So my name is Allan Léon, and I'm a professional riders and trainers in endurance since about 25 years now, around. And well, I started riding pleasure horses when I was 9 years old. And from what I remember, I think I did my first endurance ride when I was around 14 or 15 years old. So I started with a 20 kilometers ride during a small competition nearby my village.
Okay.
And so that was my first ride with my first mare that we choose for pleasure rides at the beginning, and this is how it started.
And what was her name of this mare?
Her name was Camel,
Okay.
but she had no proper passport, so in France at that time it was impossible, I think, to go more than, from what I remember, to go more than 80 kilometers ride, I think, and you couldn't participate to FEI rides. So that's why my parents decided to try to look for another horse with proper passport with pedigrees.
Okay.
And at that time, the cheapest breed that we could afford was Trotter Français. So we started, I think, 1 year and a half later with another mare she was not fast enough for racing. So we started her when she was 4 in endurance. And she did her first 40 kilometers when she was 5. And her last ride, I think she was around 10 or 11. And she did from 40 up to 200 kilometers in 2 days. And I think she's never been betted out during all this time of competition.
Okay.
So she was quite solid. Not a very fast mare, but she was really solid and safe to start the long distance rides. So she was also a good teacher for me, I could say.
Okay. And how did you go from riding your first endurance race on your little mare to becoming a professional breeder and trainer?
Mm-hmm. So during that period of time when I trained this mare, I went on several FEI competitions, 100, 120, and 200. And in the same time, I was already like planning to have some more horses. So I keep on studying myself, but not especially anything about horses, but more agricultural items, like animal production, for 2 years after my baccalaureate. And for that period of time, I used to train the horses during the weekend, and the rest of the week I was a student until I was 21 years old. When I was between 20 and 21 years old, I finishing my exams, and then I thought it was time for me to look around and discover the rest of the world, I would say.
Okay.
And so I traveled to south of France for about a couple of months, I would say, an endurance season, working for a show Arab breeders. And I stayed there for a while, and then at the end of this season of endurance, I had the opportunity to get a job in Dubai as an endurance rider, because at that time in Dubai, some French guys and Spanish guys were already working permanently for Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. So I had this opportunity, and at the end of the season, and I took my plane ticket and I arrived in Dubai for one season working in the desert.
Okay. And after
But I
that,
was
you come back in France or?
yeah, I stay one season as a rider, but to me it was, I could say, a little bit frustrated because when you're rider, you don't have any specific responsibility. You just follow the orders of a trainer. And I wanted to be probably more independent. So I went back to France, but I was still not sure if I was. I wasn't 100% sure that it was time to start my own business. So with the good relationship that I have with some people in England, I decided to travel to England for the winter, and I worked a couple of months for Henrietta Knight. Henrietta was at that time one of the famous trainer for steeplechase horses, and she was really a wonderful woman. She used to be a top eventing rider and also an eventing coach. She used to be national coach for the British team for the Olympics, I think, and then she started her own steeplechase yard. So I had the chance to stay with Henrietta Knight and Terry, her husband, and I discovered a totally, completely different world with horses, but different discipline. But it was really, really full of knowledge and full of experience. And so I stayed for the winter. And when I came back to France at spring, I decided to build my own endurance yard and start training horses for myself and also for different other breeders and owners.
For which owner and breeder did you work for?
At the beginning, it was some of my friends who already breed Arab horses, and I also during all that time I also started my own breeding program. So my horses were that belongs to me were about 4, 5, 6 years old, so they already started competing on qualifiers. And after a couple of months, I had pretty good results with the horses, and I met the manager of the royal stable of Bahrain. So at what time is that time was Dr. Khaled, who was the manager for the stable who belongs to Sheikh Nasser
Okay.
bin Hamad Al Khalifa, and so met them during several competition in Europe, and a couple of months later, I was just about to travel back to Dubai for the winter season, working for Sheikh Hamdan, and I had a phone call from a transporter, and the guy was calling me directly from the lorry, saying that some horses were coming from the royal team
Okay.
to my stable for the season.
Okay.
So that was the beginning of a good adventure. And I also, before that, I also spent a couple of months following and helping and coaching the royal team of Malaysia. And the main goal of the season at that time was to participate to the World Equestrian Games in Aachen. So I did that also, and I stay a couple of months in Malaysia in Terengganu, working for the royal stable of Malaysia also for Sultan Mizan. So we trained some young horses for qualifiers, and we also trained, I think, 5 or 6 horses that did 120 in Malaysia in Bidong. So it was just, I think, a couple of years just before they organized the World Championship in Malaysia. So that was another really nice experience with top people and really interesting experience. And we share lots of things about horses in Malaysia with this royal team and His Majesty. So yeah, that was really a very nice time to begin with.
Okay. I know that at this time you run a lot. And how your experience in running? What did you take from it that helped you in endurance horse training?
Yes, when I was a teenager at school and also for pleasure, I used to run cross country and different distances also on road, and I really like this sport. So yeah, of course, it's there's a lots of common things between running, preparing marathon or cross country races and endurance. So that's also, I think, that gives me quite of an advantage when I train my horses myself, because I already had, the feeling, and you already know how more or less how to train yourself, your own body,
Mhm.
and also how to make some plan, a season plan, etc., etc. So yeah, I think it gives me a good advantage when I started training the horses professionally.
Okay, but did you learn endurance training on your own, or did you have mentor on the way to uh, to learn how to train a horse for this big race?
No, no, of course, I asked for some advice to lots of pro trainers and riders at that time. I think that the best and the first big competition that I saw was the European Championship at Morlaix, not very far from where I live. It was in 1993 or 1994, something like this. And so I could watch the whole French team participating in this event, and it was really a great feeling. And at that time, I met for the first time members of the French team, like Stéphane Fleury, who used to live in Brittany at that time with his family, and also Bénédicte de Montbon. I mean, all these top class endurance French riders. So
Mhm.
they helped me a lot. I asked them a lots of advice. I also met, I think, in the same time, Jack Bego. Jack was already the team manager and trainer for the team of UAE in France and in Europe. And I also learned a lot from him because we got many things in common. He is also a top runner in lots of marathons. So we share a lot together, and we are still sharing actually a lots of feelings and conversation when I had the chance to meet him in competition. So it
Okay.
was a mix. It was a mix of my own experience and sharing knowledge with people who already were really successful in the sport.
Okay, I see. Can you tell us about how you met Spirit de Crouz? Because it's the horse that took you to the French national team.
Hmm. So to explain, for many years, for more than 10 years, I think, I trained every year about 10 horses for the Royal Stable of Bahrain and also for different owners. And I mean, it was quite successful and quite interesting to do it. But in the same time, I was a little bit frustrated because, when you focus on a team like that, you just focus and trying to get the best results for this team only. And then you feel a bit frustrated as a rider because at one point you need to be competitive yourself. Um, so then I had something in mind, um, and it was try to find a horse with already a good potential and who was already quite old enough to participate in high level competition, at least 3 stars in the next couple of months. And I already knew the breeders from Spirit de Crouz since many years because my one of my first top mare was already from the same breeder, Inès de Crouz. Uh, we already finished, I think, top 5 at the national championship on 160 at Saint-Galmier with her, and then she was sold to Juma Punti in Spain. So I just look at the different results of the horses from l'élevage de Cruz,
Mhm.
and Spirit was one of the best one at that time. His father was Shogun, same father as Inès de Cruz that I already rode on in competition, and and it was also the full brother of Odyssey de Cruz, a young mare that I started a couple of years before. We just broke her at that time, and she ended in another professional stable with Laurent Mosti and Cécile Mileto, and they've been quite successful with this mare. She did a nice competition with Laurent. They finished, I think, top 4, top 5 on the 160. So I already knew that this genetic was really an opportunity. And that year, Spirit de Cruz did his first podium at Castelsagrar on the 160 with Pierre-Marie Morvan. So when I saw the results, I thought, okay, this is really a top horse. Let's try and call the breeder. That they were still the owner, and ask them if it was possible to get an agreement on this Spirit de Cruz and see what we can do.
Mhm.
So a couple of weeks later, I called them and I said, look, you got really a horse with great potential, I think, and I'm looking for such quality of horses. So, but the goal is not, is not to, was really to perform on the long term. So we found an agreement, and Spirit arrived a couple of weeks later at the farm. And I think we did just small rides, I think maybe 80 or 90 kilometers, just to start with. And I could feel that he was really, really, really strong and really interesting. And the first season, we did Florac in September, and he finished third. He lost two shoes on the 160
Oh.
that year, so we lost
Oh,
some time on the track, but he was super, super strong. And just after he finished third on the 160, Bénédicte Edmond, who was the national French trainer at that time, she gave me a call, and she asked me if I was thinking about the French team with this horse. So I said, yes, of course. I'm thinking about it every day. So this is how it started.
and you did your first world championship in Saint-Morin in, I don't know the year, in 20
It was a long time ago.
in 2016, because Tryon is,
2016.
it's almost that.
Yeah, I think 2016 or 2017. Yeah, it
So it,
was the first time we've been selected. I think that season we start with a 130 in Normandy. I think it was national championship for France, and I think Spirit finished third. I think on the 130, and that was beginning of the summer. And then we had a big training all together as usual, a couple of weeks before going to Samorin. And I mean, after the 130, the horse was really fresh, but I think, yeah, I just thought that he need time to recover, and so I didn't push him too much in training between the 130 and the training camp with the rest of the French team, and just hacking around with him. And I was supposed to canter at least one session on the beach a couple of days before going for the training camp. But it didn't go according to plan, because I think, I don't know, I mean, it was not a good time. So instead of cantering, we just had a bath in the sea before we went, about like 1 hour or 1 hour and a half, just walking and swimming in the sea, and back to the stable.
okay.
And I just thought he was fit enough and fresh enough to do this training camp. And he did that canter training very, very easily. I think I remember it was something like probably 30 or 40 kilometers at canter in two loops or something. It was at La Motte-Beuvron with the French staff. And but he did that really very, very easily. Even with a really hot temperature, he was looking great. So then that was the first time we've been selected with him. And then we went to Samorin.
What's the
And
benefit of taking horses into the sea?
well, lots of positive things. In fact, you work really hard when you walk through the chest, or when you swim a horse.
Mhm.
You work really hard on the cardio, but you prevent the legs, and especially the ligament and the tendons from injury, because you
Okay.
just fight against the water, but that's it. There's no concussion. There's no risk of injury at all. So that's why it's really interesting. And you need lots of energy. the heart rate is going really high, but you really keep the legs really clean, like nothing in comparison to a canter on a trot on a hard surface. So, and it also give you, of course, it's very rich in trace elements in salts, which is also really good for the tissues.
Okay.
And also for the mind, for the mind, just the simple fact that the horses are just doing something different than the everyday training. They feel really happy to be in the water and just do something different. So that's also quite good for their own mind to relax in the sea.
And do you do this with all high level horses?
I try to, even if now I'm quite busy with the rest of the yard and everything. But yes, as soon as I can, especially since the spring arrived,
Mm.
let's say in May, June, and all the summer, yeah, we're trying to do it. Yes, every time it's possible, then we go to the beach with the horses. Yes.
Okay. Can you share the story of the World Equestrian Games in Tryon in 2018? Because
Hmm?
everyone remember that iconic picture of you and Spirit galloping into the vet gate. Um, so maybe you can start with the qualification for this race.
So Spirit was very successful in Samorin for the first time being part of the team. He did a really nice ride. He was still very powerful on the last loop. He was really very fresh. The last loop was just incredible at Samorin. He did at one point on my GPS. We were going at like 27 or 28 kilometers per hour in the last 5 kilometers of the loop. So it was really amazing. And so the year after that, we were already part of the team and we finished the European Championship in Brussels. But the goal was already that season to participate to the World Equestrian Games in Tryon, 1 year later.
And
So he was again ready to do that. We had a couple of issues because he had, I don't know, a bite or something just before the 160 to train him to go to Tryon actually. So again, I had to run lots of kilometers next to him because I don't know, the kind of bees or whatever. I don't know what it was, but anyway, he had a really bad bites in the middle of his back, um, and it was swelling. So I couldn't put a saddle for several weeks, I would say. So during all that period of time, he was just doing a little bit of treadmill twice a day, and then I was running next to him on tracks several kilometers a week.
that was inspiration
So
for
that
you
was
too.
quite hard. Yeah, that was a bit hard, but I mean, he was fit, I was fit, so it was it was good for both of us. So he did the 160 to prepare Tryon quite slowly. It was in Brittany. But anyway, again, Benedict told me that she fully trusts me and that the most important thing is to arrive at Tryon with a horse fit and ready to finish the World Championship in good position. So when we arrived in Tryon, the Spirit was looking good, and all the rest of the French team was looking really amazing also. But since the beginning, when we arrived in Tryon, we could realize that it was really a bit of a mess because nothing was really ready. They were late in every single constructions around the venue. The eventing track was not ready. The part of the endurance track was also not ready. So since the first few days, we could see that it was a bit of a mess. But I think the best part was the day of the race.
But how did you feel
Uh,
at that moment when you saw that nothing was ready?
well, sometimes when you go to competition, for example, when you go and compete in the Middle East, sometimes you arrive just a couple of days before the race, and you got the feeling that it's that nothing is ready. But they are, so effective, and they got so many people to work um, in the Middle East to prepare the venue that at the end, like 24 hours before a big 160 like a Sheikh Mohammed Cup or President's Cup, everything is ready, and you got the best facilities, and it's amazing how effective they are. But in Tryon, it was not really the case. So we were a bit worried, but we thought, okay, it's going to be okay. It will be well marked, and at the end, we just need a track with 5 or 6 loops and a proper vet gate, and everything will go well. We were still hoping, but it was not the case at all.
Yes, we know.
So practically the day of the competition, I mean the morning of the competition, as a French team, we already knew exactly what to do in the morning of the ride. We already checked where the start line was. We knew exactly how many times we need between the stables and the appointment to get our GPS done on the horses, and then how many minutes we need from this point to go to the start point, and to have enough time to warm up the horses about 15 minutes before the official start time, etc., etc. But even in the morning of the race, it was again a mess. They were very late with the GPS. Horses were walking around everywhere in the night. Even the stewards around the venue, they were also not well organized. They didn't know exactly where to go. Anyway, but all the French team, 15 minutes before the official start, we were ready next to the line, ready to go. But the problem was that next to the start, well, I would say half of the competitors were missing. So the
Oh,
ground jury was there, and we said to the president of ground jury, "Sir, it's impossible to start the competition now because most of the riders are missing. The team from UAE was missing. Nearly all of the Spanish team was missing also. Only Alex Luque was with us. So we said, we cannot start now." So he said, "Well, it's going to be a delay, but in 15 minutes we will start." Okay. So we
okay.
still wait, and we wait, and we waited and waited, and nobody else was coming. And then they say, "Okay, you can start now." Okay, so we started, but we knew that it was something was going on, because, as I said, we were already like probably only 50% of the starters were at the official start
Mm.
line. And so we started, and a few kilometers later, we had a phone call from all the staff, from the French team, from Benedict and also our crew, saying, "Where are you?" Because we are on the first crew point, and the top horses are already gone. All the team from UAE is leading. The Spanish guys are just behind them, and we cannot see you. So where are you?
Mm.
So then
Okay.
we realized that it was really a big problem, because we were supposed to be at the proper start line, and they shouldn't have 15 minutes or 20 minutes in advance on the track. So in fact, what happened that day, in the morning, they did, I don't know exactly what happened, but it seems that they did two different start line, and we had a double start for the same competition. So we were at the official start line, but another place next to a bridge was already like a second start line, and the rest of the people started from this bridge. But
Oh,
we don't know exactly how it could be possible, and we still don't know who was the guy who did this second start because it was completely unofficial.
okay.
Anyway, it was too late, to stop everything. So
Yes, you were riding at that moment, so you.
exactly, and we were already on the loop, and so we just kept going, and we thought, well, let's see what's going to happen on the first vet gate. But just before we arrived at the first vet gate, we had again a phone call from Benedict, and Benedict told us, okay, now you're going to finish this loop, but we are going to pretend that this first loop didn't happen, and they are going to start the championship again from the venue when all the horses will be back from this first loop. And so it won't be on 160, but it will be a second start and it will be a 120. But the problem is, with all these different elements, the fact that we had two different starts, etc., by the time that they restart for the second start again,
Mhm.
we were already very late in the morning. So then it becomes really hot and humid.
Mhm.
But the people, lots of people now at that moment, they thought, okay, now it's easy because it's just a championship on 120. So now we can go flat out. But it was a big mistake because, in fact, we already done 40 kilometers. So anyway, even if the championship is on a 120, your bloody horse is already
Yeah.
done a 40 kilometers ride before the start of the 120. Plus, we started this 120 exactly at the wrong time of the day.
Mm.
End of the morning with hot temperature, humidity, and we knew that a big storm would happen in the afternoon. So the French team decided that not to change the tactic. Only Jean-Philippe Frances with Tarzibus was part of the first group, of the leader group, and then the rest of the team was a little bit back, waiting for this storm to come and waiting until the end of the afternoon, because we knew from the forecast that the temperature will go down at that time of the day. So yes, at that moment of the race, I think we were, in good position according to us, according to the plan, because we didn't ask anything to our horses. We were just, staying back um, until the storm will be gone, and then the plan was to go faster again. But the problem is during that time, lots of horses already went too fast, I think, uh, for the humidity and the temperature that we had on the track. And I think it was the end of it's hard to say, end of the three loops, I guess. Our horses were looking really good, but lots of horses uh, arriving at the vet gate were looking not really amazing. There were lots of horses were very dehydrated, and for most of them, the recovery times were really bad, like exceeding 10 minutes or more. So the clinic was pretty full already when we went through the re-exam before going on the loop. But all the French horses went through the re-exam very easily. Pulse was really good. I think Spirit did a re-exam like 44, 44 or something. Anyway, all the horses, they were doing really well. So we started the loop again. So we had another 2 loops to finish the 160. And after a while, we had a phone call again, and we were all riding together. So we were still four. And Benedict called us and he said, "Okay, guys, I got a bad news. They decided to cancel the race."
Oh, wow.
So then we were like, what the fuck is this? So then we stopped and we walked a little bit and we talked to each other and we said, okay, so I think anyway it's time to go back to the venue because there's no point to keep going on this loop for nothing. So we turn back and on the way back, you're thinking and you're thinking and you're thinking, and the pressure is really high. And I think, we were all more or less crying because, of the pressure and also the anger to know that everything was cancelled. And the horses, because they could feel that we were going back to the venue, they were getting more and more and more excited. And on the last kilometers, I thought, okay, I'm not going to go back to the venue like this and put the tack off and go back to the stable with spirits. This horse will, he's a very clever horse. He will never understand what's going on. So we need to do something. So we went through the grooming area, and we were, trotting and cantering between the buckets of water, and the horses, they were looking amazing. And I think we were the French team plus I think somebody from, I don't remember. I think Brazil or anyway another riders was with us. And all the crew people, they starting shouting and clapping, etc., etc. And then I don't know why, but I couldn't stop. So I went in the direction of the vet gate, and some stewards, I think they were at the entry of the vet gate. So I kept going at trot, and I think because Spirit is such a big horse that they just let me go through. And I went through the tent, past the past the veterinaries,
Okay.
and then I start shouting and galloping, being quite unpolite around the vet gate. But I mean, I had to do something. I had to do something for my horse, for my team, for all the people who encouraged us, my family, all the crew members, all the stuff for the French team, and at the end, all for the rest of the whole endurance world, I would say.
Yes,
We need
because
to
the
show.
French horses were good. They were okay to go on the next loop at this
Yes,
moment.
that's why we need to spray all this anger and this energy because I mean we took care of our horses.
Mm.
The metabolism of our horses, they were looking amazing. So it was so unfair to stop us at that moment of the ride.
Yes.
We knew that we had the chance to get silver or even gold medal by team.
Mm.
So it was such a big frustration. So that's why I went around the vet gate, and I mean it was probably not very polite, but it made me famous in a way for the rest of the world because,
Yes.
of course, lots of cameras were recording the vet gate area at that time. So it went viral on the social media and everywhere. So, and,
And what happened next? Did you just have to pack up and go home?
well, yes. I mean, we had another big storm. I think the day before the 160. I mean, the day before the race, the cancel race. We had another very, very big storm, and then we were really afraid that it would be also a disaster in the stable, because we had some very, very heavy rains and lots of wind, and really, yeah, really, really, really freaked out for a couple of hours. But it went well, and yeah, it was something. And we talked a lot during these few days after this cancellation, and we decided with several teams and riders and trainers and chef d'équipe. We had a meeting a couple of days after this issue, and first because I think we need to share what happened. We needed to understand exactly what exactly how can something like this happen, and also it was important for us to make sure that it won't happen again.
Do you think there is
We,
an after Tryon in the organization of a big race or of the championship?
yeah, but I think unfortunately, the first big consequence is that we're not part of the World Equestrian Games anymore.
Mhm.
Well, that's the first point, which is not really positive. But the second point is that at the end, we, I mean, the FEI realized how bad it was, and they start thinking about it, and they took some measures for the next World Championship. They change many things, like for example, they need now the people who are part of an OC who are willing to organize the World Championship. They need to do a pre-ride, and if possible, at the same period of time, 1 year or 2 years before the World Championship, at the same season, to make sure that it's possible. And also the TD and the rest of the FEI team are supposed to arrive at the venue and to visit the venue and to make sure that everything would be ready at least 1 year before the championship, to check the different tracks, the safety of the tracks, etc., etc.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it was another Tryon, and they took, I think, good decision. It was only sad, to go to such a bad publicity for endurance to change things before.
Mm. Okay. What happened to you and Spirit after that episode?
Well, after that episode, so we had a couple of good rides after that. We had the pre-ride. No, sorry. First season after Tryon, we did just a 1 star at Ermelo to prepare the season, and I think the next championship was the European Championship at Houston Park. So Spirit did the 1 star at Ermelo just as a training. He did the 1 star really well, very easily. I think we won, or we went second or something. No, we won. Yeah, we won. And but after that, unfortunately, he was, in such a good shape already that I gave him 1 week of rest, and I think he did a clown or something in the paddock with his friends in the paddock. And a few days later, when I went to see him in the paddock, he was on 3 legs.
Aye.
He was really lame from one hind leg.
Okay.
So I went to see my vet in emergency, and we ultrasound him. and he slightly twisted one of his collateral ligaments on the fetlock, lateral collateral ligament. So then my vet said, "Okay, what do you want to do now with him?" So I told him that the main goal of the season is Houston Park, the Europeans in September.
Okay.
So he said to me, "Well, you will need probably at
Yes.
least several weeks of rest. So I'm not sure he's going to fully recover from this, etc., etc." So I said to him, "There's no rush. I mean, this horse is still young. We have time.
Mm.
So we will take time with him." So I think we did a couple of shockwave therapy, and then we wait. He had some ice therapy also at home, twice a day. And a couple of weeks later, he was sound again. We did an ultrasound on him, and then my vet gave me green lights. He was back on track. But I already said to Jean-Michel Grimal, who was the first national trainer, that I think it was better not
Mm.
to participate with him at the European Championship, because I was not sure that 100% he will be sound the day of the competition. So
Okay.
I took him out of the team, and I really had no pressure, and we were for several weeks again. We were just having really light sessions of training, a little bit of up and down on hills, and lots of walk in the sea again, to make sure that he will be stronger and stronger to recover
Mm.
from his injury. And after that, I decided to go to Juliange on the 120. And on the 120 at Juliange, he was just flying in the air. Really, he was so easy, easy, easy.
Okay.
And then I thought, okay, we are in July, Florac is in September. So if the next day after the 120 is super sound, and I have no doubts, then the plan is to go to Florac. And that's what we did, because the next day he was super sound, no doubt at all. The ligament was dry, not swelling, not hot, nothing. So we keep on going until the day of Florac. And we didn't do a lot between Julian's and Florac. It was again lots of hiking, a couple of canter session in the beach, and again lots of swim and walk in the water, because he was already very fit after the 120. And that day at Florac, he was just an incredible horse. He was very self-confident, very quiet, very easy to ride. He took the lead in the morning. We took the lead together with only one guy from Oman, who was just a few meters in front of us. But the horse was so quiet, so self-confident. He knew exactly what to do. He already knew the 160, because we already done the 160 3 years before.
Mhm.
So he knew all the tracks. He knew exactly, how to deal with the going up to the Montegual and then going down from the Montegual. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And so he did like the perfect race. I had really nothing to ask him tactically. It was, of course, when you are in the top five at Florac, it's lots of pressure. But when you ride such a horse, you don't really feel the difficulties, and you're not afraid of the other competitors, because you know that you got the strongest machine ever created. So the Spanish guys were really fighting in France. They always, try to take the lead. During the Mont Aigual, they were leading 15 minutes in front of us. And again, just before climbing the Cosméjean, it was the same. I mean, they were really strong, but at the end, when we were about to start on the fifth loop, I mean, we meet them again on the track, and when we reached them, I could see that the Spanish horses, they were already done. I
Okay.
could see from from their eyes, also from the way they behaved. They behaved. I know that they were. I mean, the race was already done. I just had
Okay.
to finish the last loop in a proper way, and the last loop. I did the last loop a couple of times before the 160 with him to make sure you remember all the different parts of the last loop. Because the last loop at Florac is quite particular. It's a 20 kilometers loop. You start from Hispaniac again, where you start in the morning. So you start again from the main venue, which is quite difficult for the horses because they are back next to the stables, and then you need to go again on this last loop. And the last loop is basically 20 kilo, 10 kilometers going up without crew, one crew point at the top of the mountain, and then 10 kilometers again to go down to the village. So we went on the last loop in first position, and Marieke Visser from Netherlands was just behind us with a top horse. So I knew that she was a dangerous competitor, and I knew that she wanted to win also. So I did the first few kilometers of the hill galloping, and but at some point, just before the big hill, she was less than 1 minute behind me. So then I was like, okay, let's see what we can do together. And if she's coming back, she's coming back, and we'll see how we go down the hill. Because Spirit is a top horse to go up, but going down is not so well balanced because he's a shagger, so I mean he's full of muscles. So to go down is not the best horse.
Mhm.
And when we reached the top of the mountain, we were still alone and nobody behind us. So what I did is I jumped from him. We already finished together, running together the last at least 2 kilometers. I ran with him to reach the top of the mountain. He had a good drink. He was looking good. But then I thought, okay, let's start running again because I will save some energy and he will save his leg. So I went down with him, running on the toll road, and then I ran also nearly all the way back
Okay.
to the valley. And but I was running at 16, 17 kilometers per hour with him, and we were still alone. And so when we reached together down to the valley, I know that then he could canter again because the track was better and it was not flat but nearly flat. So I jumped again on his back, and then he just went like he's done nothing before. And then he took a super strike at canter, and he did all the way like this. I couldn't stop him, and when he knew that we were going through the village, then he was so happy and he was so fresh. And we passed the finish line like he was just looking just fantastic.
Do
And
you think it makes a real difference to run alongside the horse during the races?
I think so, yes. I mean, not on every competition, of course,
Hmm.
but in very technical rides like Florac,
Okay.
I think it makes a difference, especially going downhill. Because when you
Okay.
go down at trot or canter, you put lots of pressure on shoulders and front legs and withers. And I think if you are a proper runner, if you
Hmm.
can run downhill at 17 kilometers per hour, you don't waste your time, and the horse is feeling less concussion on his front leg.
Okay.
and he can have some rest because there is less tension in inside of the muscles, especially the forehands. So yeah, I think it helps in very technical condition. I think it helps. Of course, in very flat condition, like in the desert or
Yes.
in very flat course, anyway, you can't stop because you are running at more than 20 kilometers per hour.
Yes.
But
Okay.
in very technical ground, yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So
And
he did that, and the next
okay.
day he also won the best condition award, which was really really great.
Wow.
Because the next day he was super sound and he was looking really good. So it was like to me it's nearly more important to win the best condition award than winning the 160 because it shows to everyone that you took care of your horse and you respect the pace, and so that was really a great feeling to win the best condition award the next day.
And now you don't ride Spirit anymore?
No. um, the next season after he won Florac, we had a couple of misunderstanding with the French national team, the staff and the trainer. So, and this horse, he did so many unbelievable things that we agree with the owners that he should go maybe and join another team to keep going. And so after a couple of weeks, um, we found some people in Portugal. They were looking for a top horse in good condition, ready for the next championship.
Mm.
So we agreed to send him to Portugal to join the team. And he did again with the team of Portugal an amazing competition. He had a couple of weeks of months of adjustment because it's not always easy, to change after 6 or 7 years to change, the stable, the foods, the atmosphere, the climate. Everything is very different from my place to Portugal. But he did very well again after that. Um, he was the first. He was the only European horse trained in Europe to finish top 10 at the World Championship in Butib. After this with Portugal.
Mhm.
So no, he did again some amazing results, and he was 18 years old last year and still competing. So he's a solid horse, a solid warrior.
Aside from your journey with Spirit de Crouz, you are also involved in coaching and rider education programs, both in France and internationally. Can you tell us about that?
Mm-hmm. So when I was in the French team with Benedict as a trainer, she advised us to go through the teaching program to become a future coach or teacher. So that's what I did. I follow her advice, and I went through this exam. And with this diploma, then I was able to start doing my own coaching business. So I started this already now since a couple of years. So we started. I started to do it first with private riders in France, and a few years before, already we already organized a training camp in Switzerland for the first time with one of my friends who is a vet in Switzerland and who was also part of the national team in Switzerland. She finished a European Championship, I think, with the national team. So we already did that, and then I was quite successful in doing this, and I already knew lots of foreign riders through my different experiences in different countries. So it went quite well, and it's still the case now. And a, I think 2 years ago now, or 2 years and a half already. I mean, it's going so fast. At least 2 years ago, some FEI representatives called me and asked me if I would be interested to be part of some FEI Solidarity project. So I say yes, because it's a very interesting things to do. So they gave me the opportunity to participate in different training camps. So basically, the FEI Solidarity programs it's part of the FEI, and the main goal is to develop the different equestrian disciplines, Olympic and non-Olympic, through all over the world. And so, of course, endurance is one of the main discipline at the FEI. So there is different things involving with the FEI Solidarity programs. Some of the programs are dedicated to the endurance riders, juniors or seniors, to help them to progress, to qualify themselves and qualify their horses to reach the top level. And I'm also part of the education program for coach level 1 in endurance. So I did one of the first training camp. Now it's more than 2 years ago in Czech Republic with Jean-Philippe Camboulive. And that was really a great experience working with him. I learned really many things. And it's really interesting because you share so many things with all these riders and breeders and coaches all over the world. It's really a great opportunity to do that.
Last year you were in South Africa. Can you tell us what you were doing there?
Yes. So last year I spent actually 3 weeks between three different countries in Africa. About 1 week in South Africa, then 1 week in Botswana, and 1 week, in Namibia. So every weekend we had a race from 40 kilometers qualifier up to, if I remember, 100, I think. Yes, 100. So I went to these three countries again through the FEI Solidarity system, because there is one very interesting project, at least in these three countries, and we hope in the future maybe more countries in Africa. The FEI is willing to improve and to kind of refresh the FEI rides and trying also to help the people to organize the races, and also trying to help the riders who are willing to participate in FEI rides in these three countries. And so the first goal is to organize a regional championship between these three countries in 2025, this year. And then the main goal is for these three countries to get some riders hopefully ready and qualified to participate to the World Championship in Saudi Arabia in Al Ula in 2026.
Okay.
So the first step for me was to meet as many riders as possible and to discuss with them, and also to meet the different people who are organizing events in these three countries. And I also met a lot of breeders because a lot of people in these three countries are most of them are riders and Arabian breeders. And so it was interesting to have a chat and to meet these people to know exactly, you know, what's going on in these three countries concerning the endurance rides. Because in the past, in these countries, they had much more FEI registered riders and much more OC than now. But just during the period of COVID and after COVID, they reduced a lot the number of FEI rides. And so that's also the reason why the FEI is willing to help these countries to get more rides, FEI rides, and then more rider participating in these rides. So that's the first step. And so this year, I'll be back to these three countries in July for another 3 weeks. And the second step is to have some training camp in these three countries with senior riders and junior riders that we met and are interested into the program of FEI Solidarity. And I'm going to try to, let's say, to give some advice, and I'm going to try to help them to improve themselves, to be, to perform and to be better and better, and to improve their equestrian skills in general. And then the main goal is for these juniors and seniors to get enough qualification on through the FEI system to be able to participate to World Championship for junior and senior in the next few years.
Okay. I'm curious to know how they train, how are the races there, and also I imagine that their water management is very different from ours. So, how do they use water for the race?
Mm-hmm. So the way they are practicing endurance and the qualification are exactly the same as in the rest of the world, but it's slightly different because all these countries are very big countries, and you got only a few rides in the season in comparison to Europe. So many people are traveling for a quite long distance to be able to participate in every ride. So they are, focusing on just a couple of rides during the year. So they are really paying attention, especially on the qualifier, not to take too much risk for the horses because they need qualification to go further. Because they don't have too many chances in comparison to us, because the rides are far and there is only a few rides in comparison to Europe or to France. So that's why I think the mentality is a bit different. And there's not so much water, of course, because, for example, in Botswana and Namibia, last year they had really, really terrible droughts. So they had no grass, everything was like dust. It was really impressive to see that. And in most of the rides, for example, the national rides in South Africa, there is no crew points. You just help your riders and your horses when they are back to the bed gate. But on the track, there's no crew points.
Okay.
Only on FEI rides, there are some crew points, but for national rides, they are not. They got no crew points. They just got some water points. So it could be a water tank or it could be a river, whatever is available.
Okay.
And anyway, most of the rides, for example, in South Africa, they organize the rides in big properties from one or two or different farmers because each farm is it's really huge. It's like 5,000, 6,000 hectares each. So the owner will let you organize a ride, but he doesn't want, hundreds of cars driving everywhere in his property. So anyway, he will allow only, let's say, the cars for safety, like an ambulance or anything like this, but no crew cars. So the people they are on their own, and they had to deal with this. So they stop at the water point and they slush the horses with sponges or whatever is available. But they are really on their own and they just receive the help from one groom. Most of the time, it's only one groom per rider at the vet gates when they want to go through the vet gates, but that's it.
Okay.
So it's quite different from what we are used, but it's very similar to the system that I think you can found in USA or in Australia.
But with this different water management and races management, are the average speeds are lower than in Europe or no?
No, 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 no. Most of the races, I mean, of course, if it's very hilly, then the speed will not be high, but they are very competitive. And for example, you can see that some rides are the average speed of some rides are more than 20 kilometers per hour, with the last loop at 24 or 25 kilometers per hour. So it doesn't change anything on the speed, and the recovery time are the same. The horses are very quick to go inside it to the gate. Lots of horses are going through the gate in less than 1 minute because the metabolism of these horses are just incredible. They are really tough.
Okay. But why don't we see these horses competing in the international circuit?
Hmm. The main reason is the trip. The cost of the trip is very high, especially because they have a very specific disease in South Africa and some countries around, which is called African horse sickness. So now the quarantine is a bit different, but the quarantine used to be really long. That before, for example, last year, the horses had to go from, for example, from Cape Town Airport. They needed to go to Mauritius Island. Then they used to stay 3 months in Mauritius Island before they could fly again from Mauritius to Europe, for example, to England. And then after England, if the blood tests are okay and if all the horses are fine, then they can again travel, for example, to the Middle East, which is the main region to export the horses from South Africa. So that's why we don't see a lot of horses from this region, because the quarantine is very long and the cost is really high. But now the quarantine is more simple than it used to be, because now they created some, like we can say, bubbles, which are clean from South African horse sickness. So now the horses just need to stay for 1 month in this quarantine. And then if everything is fine and if the blood tests are fine, then they can travel directly to Europe or to another country. So it makes things much more simple. And then the flight will also be a little bit less expensive than before.
Okay. So we will see South Africa team and Namibia team and Botswana team at Alula in 2026, maybe.
Yes, yes, I hope they will be there. They really, they really deserve to be there because I mean the horses, the way they breed the horses in in very very big space, like I saw in Namibia or South Africa, is really just amazing. The horses are really strong horses, very well balanced because they are, literally most of them they are really living into the wild, eating bushes, and so when they reach the age of 5 years old, they are already nearly ready to do a 40 kilometers ride, and they are really really tough horses. And now some breeders they breed horses for 2, 3 generation of breeders, so they really do good job through the selection of mares and stallions. And some of them, the metabolism are just incredible. So they deserve to do it, and I think they will have a good chance because, for example, in Namibia, there's a big part of Namibia with big desert, with big dunes and deep sand. So I think the riders from these areas they got really good chance to be competitive in Alula because the condition and the ground will be very similar to what they are facing every weekend in endurance in their own country. So no, I think it's a chance for them to prove that they can be competitive at a very high level in Alula for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Um, Last February, you were in UAE to talk about the athletic longevity of horses. Can you tell us about your presentation there?
Yes, that was really really interesting. Um, in fact, the guys from Al Walba Endurance Village, they contacted the FEI because they were willing to organize several days of conferences on different topics. And they asked the FEI if they could recommend some expert to talk about the endurance horses in general and the management of endurance horses. And so we had a first meeting with them I think 1 month or 5 weeks before the conference. And we talked together with Jean-Philippe Camboulive and the person responsible of the endurance village in Abu Dhabi, and we all agreed to choose the particular topics of how to manage an endurance horse on the long term. So that was really a very interesting items, and so we proposed to do this with me and Céline Robert because Dr. Céline Robert she's a teacher at the veterinary school in Maison Alfort in Paris, and I met her now since I think it was like 20 years ago when I did some of my study in Maison Alfort. And Céline Robert, she did lots of studies concerning endurance horses in the last 20 years. And we already worked together on several items concerning the endurance horses. So it was quite interesting to do this conference together because Céline got more scientific approach of the endurance horse, and me as a trainer and a rider, I got more technical point of view. So I think, sharing the two aspects of this is really interesting. So we did that in February in front of lots of people from different countries, and it was the audience was a mix of trainers, young riders, vets, FEI judges, FEI representatives, representative from the UAE Federation also, and the people from Abu Dhabi, from the Parents Village. So that was something really interesting to share, really. And we did also the last day we did also a practical session. I mean, some practical sessions with some young riders from all over the world, local riders, juniors, but also young riders who has been invited by Alba Endurance Village to participate to this week of seminars.
Okay.
So we did a practical session with me in an indoor arena, and Celine did something different with the juniors about the trotting and how to evaluate a horse, the soundness of a horse, etc., etc. So
Okay.
no, it was very interesting to share, and again to meet different people and with different point of view concerning endurance.
But isn't it a little bit surprising that they choose this particular topic for your presentation about the longevity of horses?
Mm, surprising? No, I wouldn't say that. I think they probably ask themselves a good question, um, because for example, you can see that some stables in UAE, they got some horses competing several years in a row, and you can see some horses still competing on 160 at 15, 16, 17 years old,
Yes.
and some other stable with only young horses. So there is probably a question of management. So I think this is why they choose these topics.
Mhm. Okay. Do you address certain topics differently when speaking to Western riders, African rider, or from other country rider?
Mm, yes, I think you always need to adapt, because the way you train and the way you feed and the way you breed horses is very different from one country to another, or from one continent to another. And the cultural aspect is also something that you need to consider. So every time I'm going to a new country, I always try to first to take informations about the country before I travel, and then when I arrive, I always go for a run if I can, before doing any conference or giving any advice, because just going for a run will give you lots of information. Like, how is the ground? Is it hard? Is it soft? How is the percentage of humidity, or the temperature in the morning and in the afternoon? So then I think if you do that during the first day, and then you talk to the people the next day, and then you can really adapt the way you are going to give them some advice. For example, when I went to Botswana for the first time, I went for a run of, I think, 10 kilometers
Okay.
on the horse track, and I realized something, that because they had a really really terrible drought, then just the air was so dry. I mean, I was after 8 kilometers, I was completely dehydrated. In comparison to Europe, it was a complete different atmosphere. So this is the kind of thing that you can realize only if you go for a run or if you go cycling outside, I think. So I think it's really important to do this every time you reach a new country.
So the horses there are adapted, I don't know if the right word, for this weather.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they are adapted because they were probably born there in this climate. But even if they are born in this, if they were born in this climate or in this country, you need to be careful in the way you're going to train them. For example, when you train horses in Malaysia, there is a very high percentage of humidity.
Okay.
So you need to be really careful because you could get some metabolic problems if you don't pay attention to this. So, for example, in Malaysia, you train the horses probably very early in the morning, and you don't train them between 11 o'clock and at least 4 o'clock in the afternoon because it's too humid and too hot.
Okay.
So yeah, you need to be really careful, especially the temperature and the percentage of humidity are really very two aspects that you need to consider every time you train or you race a horse.
Yes, I see. Are there any other projects planned for FEI Solidarity in 2025 or in the long term?
Yes, I mean, for my part, so what we've been talking about in South Africa is called talent detection. So it means that we need to pick up the interesting people and the people who are really willing to improve themselves into the discipline. So that's a first aspect. We got another aspect through the FEI Solidarity system is to develop the coaching system because until now the coaching system is well developed in the other disciplines like the Olympic disciplines, but it's just the beginning of coaching in endurance. So that's why the FEI developed the first level of coaching in endurance since a few years, and the second part of this coaching system, so it's a level 2. We are willing to develop and to write down this level 2. I hope it will be finished by the end of 2025. So basically, the level 1 of coaching is to teach some people to be able to coach some students and riders up to the level of 1 star. And the level 2, so with the next step is to teach the people to be a proper coach for endurance riders who will be participate in at least 2, even 3 stars event. And then the last level, next step again will be 3 stars and championships to coach national teams and stuff like this.
Okay.
So it's another very interesting project. Lots of countries are interested in this project, and I think it's also a good way to develop endurance worldwide, because we need people to teach how to manage endurance horses in training and how to manage them every day. And this is the key of the success of riders in the discipline.
Can you tell us about your involvement with the Swiss Federation?
So I think the first training camp that I did in Switzerland was I think now more than 10 years ago. Yeah, at least 10 years ago. And I did a couple of training camp like this, sometimes 2 times, for the endurance commission of the Swiss Equestrian Federation. And now I think it's the third year. I think, yes. I think since at least 3 seasons now, I'm officially the coach of the national endurance team of Switzerland. So now we are following um, 3 different groups of endurance rider in Switzerland. From the beginners to what we call the perspective, which are people qualified on a 1 star up to 120. And then we are also following the elite group, which are people qualified on 3 stars and possibly qualified to go to European and World Championships.
Okay, it's a great program.
Yes, it's a great program. It's quite ambitious, of course, but it's getting better and better. We got more and more riders interested. I think the first year when I started working as a coach, we had, I think, 6 riders qualified only for the championship. And I think this year we'll have at least 10 or maybe more, but at least 10 people qualified to go
Okay.
to the European Championship in Italy. So it's improving and it's better and better. And we had our first training camp with riders and horses a couple of days ago in Avanches. And it was really encouraging. I think we had a total of, 32 riders and horses. So it's big group and there is big improvement and people are willing to learn more and more. And I think generally speaking, the level is getting better and better. So I was really happy to see that on the last training weekend. Yeah.
Okay.
So this year we got 2 main goals. The first goal is to have 6 people ready and fit to participate into the European Championship in Italy. And we got a second goal is to have also a team to participate to the CIO in Bourg in Germany. So this is our 2 main goals, and of course, I'm already thinking about Alula next year.
But what did you decide to form 2 teams? It must be twice the work.
Yes, that's well. First, because I think it's quite when you are part of an elite group like this, it's quite frustrating to go through all the different level of qualifications. And at the end, at the last training session, anyway, we will choose only 6 people. 5 people plus one more riders and horse. So, and then for the one who have been doing all the process, and at the end, well, they feel very frustrated because at the end they did everything went well, but they're not in the team. So my point of view is saying, okay, you are still one of the best riders in Switzerland. So, but we will trust you to participate to the CIO as a team, because I want these people, first to thank them for all the effort that they've been doing. And then I believe that by participating into events like CIO, I want to see how these people will deal with the pressure of the main competition of the year, and to see if they could get good results and if they could work as a team together. And then it's like a step to be able to go further and to be able maybe 1 year later to be part of the national team for a European or World Championship.
We see that teams like France, Spain, or other made up entirely of professionals. In Switzerland, the team also includes amateur riders. Is that more challenging?
Um, Challenging, yes. Well, in Switzerland, it's a mix of amateur and pros because we've got also professional people are part of the elite group. Well, most of them are living in France. Um, so it's a mix of amateur and pros, really. It's challenging, yes. I think, for an amateur, it's a big challenge and it's not easy to train an endurance horse at that level of competition because they got their own job. They got to deal also with their families. So it's sometimes hard for them to find enough time to train the horses every single week and weekends, and to take part also to training camps and also competition. They need to be well organized, and they need to take sometimes several days, 1 week or 10 days of holidays in their free time. So it's not always easy. Um, and they also need themselves to stay very fit because most of them they got just a couple of horses to ride at home. So it means that they need to do some other sports to make sure they are fit enough to finish a 160.
Mm.
So it's a different challenge. Whereas I think the pros, of course, they got much more horses to deal with every day and every week. There are also some other. It's the perspectives are different because they need to live on horses. So it means that they need to do some business with the horses. They need to get good results to be able to sell the horses for the business to go on and on. So again, it's another challenge. I would say, it's really two different kind of riders. But it's both of them, the amateur and the pros, are very interesting to deal with, and you just need to understand that they are not facing with the same issues every day. But it's no, it's I think it's good to have a mix with amateur and pros, honestly.
Okay. Um, would you add something else about endurance and I don't know?
Um, when we were in Abu Dhabi, some conferences, I mean, the items were about how endurance could be sustainable, and also what is the relation, what is the link between the public and the endurance sport in general. And I think this is again a very interesting topic to talk about because I think as riders and trainers, we really need to consider the impact of our sport in term of environment and in carbon print. I think it's if you look at other sports like ultra trail, for example, or if you look at the Olympics in Paris, you need to consider more and more and more your impact to the public and also to the environment. And I think this is really something that we need to consider. And I'm pretty sure if we want our sports to involve again and to keep going, just to keep going, we need to consider this. We need to reduce the energy that we consume. We need to reduce the quantity of water that we use every weekend. I think we need to improve ourselves a lot if we want this sport to grow more and more worldwide. I think we need to consider these aspects.
Should we manage our races the way South African riders do, with or water
Well,
management and?
it could be. I mean, of course, every country is different from one to another, but yes, I think. I mean, when you look at the ride in South Africa without any crew cars on the road and only water points every 10 kilometers, and still, I mean, as I said, the speed is really high. The recovery time are just super good. And without ice water, without crew cars, I think we should think about it. Because when you participate to big rides in France with more than 50 or 70 or 80 starters on a race, it means at least 100 cars, 100 4x4. I mean, people living into the villages around the venue, they feel completely surrounded by 4x4 and by people slushing horses with ice water. And I don't think, they really enjoy to see this, especially when it's in the middle of the summer in Europe, and when you are facing a big drought and people are having restrictions on how to use the water in a proper way. I mean, we cannot keep on doing like this, nothing exists but our sport. Our sport is part of the rest of the world, and if you want the public to agree and to support it, then you need to change the way you are practicing it.
Okay.
We must progress.
Yes.
work in progress. But I think first we need to realize how important is it. Because most of the people, lots of people who are part of OC or lots of FEI judges, they already realized how important it is and how is the impact of this on the public and on the environment in terms of sustainability. But the riders, especially in Europe, I think they should really consider it seriously, because if they don't pay attention to this, at one point, my fear is that we will just be banned. And I think it's better to react now and to change our habits before it will be too late.
So I think we have covered everything. Thanks again for taking the time to record this interview with me a second time. So see you soon.
Yes, thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me. It was also the first time for me to make a podcast in English, so it's a nice experience.
Great.
And I hope I was clear enough for most of the people that are going to listen to this podcast. But thank you very much anyway. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening all the way to the end. Feel free to follow the podcast on Facebook or Instagram. Just look for Journal d'Endurance, and I hope to see you soon on the tracks.